Nice.
We're doing a Christmas cruise.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like a good time.
Yes, creating memories.
Yeah, you say your daughter and your granddaughter?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
The
I'm a
three ladies.
nana. I'm a nana.
Nothing wrong with that.
Tamara, you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
I know. I'm getting it. I'm always rough getting on here, but then I get here and I get locked in. But yes, I'm
Yes.
here.
Yes. Hi.
Hey.
Um, did you run any more numbers?
So we were trying. So that has been really helping me spearhead the math because I'm not good at math.
Okay.
And that's where we kind of ran into some problems. And some of it could just be that I'm also relaying information not great. So we were going through some of your modules and trying to relook at the formulas and figure out where we're starting and where we're stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but our math has not been the best. So we're
How
trying
many
to figure
properties did you
out.
run numbers for?
We did, what did we do? That maybe like I want to say maybe three more, or we looked at about three more.
Yeah,
Um,
because I tried to do it, and every time I did one, and I think I'm starting. I think my numbers are my starting point is what's off, and I guess that was going to be my first question because I I understand the math. I can see what you're doing in all this in all the modules that was sent over the other day, but I'm not sure what number goes where as to when it starts off with uh, the the first thing it asks for, if I'm not mistaken, is give me just a second here. It
ERV.
asks for the ah, I can't find my mouse. Okay, I'll use my hand. I can't find my mouse, but that's okay. I have it right here. All right, I tried to do this one right here, and it asked for the list price, and that's okay. That was on the going back to the very first one, which is the cash flow. I think. Let me see. No, not the cash flow. That's an equation.
The first thing is the income. The next is the expense. There's two separate numbers. So when you're looking at numbers, it's the rental formulation, which is kind of like the four squares, and then which
Mm-hmm.
is income, expenses, net operating income, cash flow, and return on investment. And then there's the fix and flip, which is the MAIL, the maximum allowable offer.
Okay.
So let me
All
show
right.
you. I'm gonna show you the properties that you sent me week before or last week. Let me share. Let's go here. Share.
Yeah, this is where we had the spreadsheet that.
Okay, from last one the other week.
Mhm.
Why won't it make it bigger?
Let's see if I can find that one.
All right, let's escape that because it stop share. Share. Okay, so with the first property, 2785. I don't know if you ran comps on the properties, but that's really the first thing you want to do is you want to run your comps to get an idea of fair market or ARV, whatever, depending on the condition of the home. If you're buying the home as is, then and or under market, then you're going to do a as is comp analysis. So apples to apples. And then with the fix and flip, we're doing comps because we want to see what the after repair value is to plug into that formula. So for this property here, um, I did the comps. The comp was about 230 for the comps for this property. The income, you had the income correct, which, Zillow gives you a Zestimate. You
Mm-hmm.
could also use Rentometer to be able to get an idea of what rentals are in that area. And then the expenses, which you have here, and this is what we talked about, that was when it comes to expenses, taxes, that's correct. You have taxes, you have insurance, HOA if there's a HOA. When it comes to the vacancy, we do 10% of the income for that estimate. And then we do for maintenance and repairs is 10% of the income. So for this one, it would be $230 for vacancies, $230 for um, maintenance and repairs. This does not, expenses does not include rehab. Rehab is a separate cost associated with the property, but it's kind of like a one-time thing. It's not something that's going to be monthly. In this application or this part of the equation, this is what your monthly expenses and income is
Hmm.
going to be. So we don't calculate the rehab into this number. We calculate the rehab when you do the return on investment. And so
Okay, so for the estimated repairs, you just go with the basically 10% of whatever the
income,
income is.
correct, which in this
And the
case
same
is
thing with the vacancy loss.
no, I don't know where this came from.
The
This is
vacancy
something
loss is
that was put
to,
there,
pro-
but when
to
we're
protect it.
calculating vacancy and repair or something on a monthly, and so
Hmm.
that is just 10% of, to keep it simple, 10% of your income for vacancy, 10% of your income for maintenance and repairs. You can take this out unless that's something you want to add for yourself personally as an additional cushion. But when running
That
the
2 months
numbers,
right there, I had no clue what to put there. So I'm like, okay, if it's gonna take us 2 months to find someone, that's where I came up with the 2 months at. That was a number that I just stuck in there because I had no clue what to put there.
when you say put here, what
For
was here
the for
before?
the projected vacancy loss 2 months, I put the 2 months in there because I didn't know what the projected vacancy loss. I didn't know about the 10%. So I was assuming that I did that based on the fact that I was thinking it may take 2 months to find a renter. So I'm going to project the vacancy loss as 2 months of lost income, which obviously now I know it should be 10% of the income.
hmm And like I said, it's really a matter or a function of you running your business.
Hmm.
Say for instance, when you get started, that is the trend that you see that maybe it takes 2 months to get someone in when you get them in. And that's why we spread it out over monthly, right? So that 10% is something that you're setting aside every month. But if
Okay.
it makes you feel more comfortable to have, because this is more or less like a reserve thing, and that's what I was telling Tamara. I think you should have at least $10,000 reserve set aside for a property, just as like a emergency fund if something happens. But
Hmm.
that's also a personal preference too. But for running your numbers to determine acquisition, to determine if this is going to be a good investment or not, this is the
Okay.
numbers that we use. It's just the monthly expenses, and we use 10% for the vacancy and 10% for the maintenance and repairs. Also, if you
Okay.
use the property manager, most property managers charge anywhere to 10 to 12%. So it just depends. But every property obviously expense is going to be different because some of them may have a HOA, some of them may not have a HOA. You
Hmm.
may do a furnished rental where you're doing the utilities, or maybe you have a duplex and there's only 1 meter. So if there's only 1 meter, then you would take care of the utilities, and then you would do a what they call not a buyback, but it's called a rub, where you charge a percent of the utilities to each tenant if there's only 1 meter. So it just varies, just depends on the property. So
Okay.
net operating income is your income minus your expenses. And and this is why I put a question mark here. So here I did the calculation and I got 11,081, just under what you had here tomorrow. And then again the NOI is here where you have the annual income minus your annual expenses. And so to determine what your cash flow is, you have to subtract your debt payment or your mortgage from your net operating income. Now, the debt payment you had here, it was a little off too, but I wasn't sure why it was off. And
Hmm.
I wasn't sure how were you calculating your mortgage payment. I was using the calculator on Zillow, and I was
Mm-hmm.
using it was I believe it was I just did 3% down because Zillow will automatically default it to 20% down automatically. So I changed the down payment to 3%
Okay.
um for that, and it was something else, but I wasn't sure tomorrow. How are you getting your mortgage payment? Just this category here. How are you determining that?
On Zillow, it had an estimated mortgage.
Oh, so you just took that number.
I took that number.
Well, there's a calculator there. So Zillow make assumptions. So you have to open it. Let me show you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go down um somewhere. Where
Oh, I don't know that it's going to show it now because this is listed as a foreclosure.
it says active.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they move stuff because I swear it'd be like 1 minute it's like right there, and then the next minute it's like, where did it go? I'll find it. Here we go. So this is principal and interest. So you want
Mm-hmm.
to click on this box here because this one had 1164 for the that's monthly. I don't know what the
It
annual
added in
is.
the taxes and insurance.
Well, and that's what I was saying. Like it's important to like when you are using a mortgage calculator to make sure you're not calculating the taxes and insurance twice. Now, this particular box here is only this amount is
Mm-hmm.
only principal and interest. But if you
Mm-hmm.
add in the total, then you're calculating taxes and insurance twice. Because then it becomes PITI. And that's usually what a mortgage payment is, because most times when you have a mortgage, it's an escrow. And so they're going to automatically take the insurance and taxes. So when you're running your
Okay.
numbers, you just want to make sure not to double that up. And so
Okay.
that may be what had happened
Yeah,
there.
that was one of my questions too, because I remember telling Tamara it seemed like we're doing it twice.
Right. And so you definitely don't want to do that twice with your tax
Okay.
and insurance. You can either do it separately and base it out. And then also too for your taxes, I wasn't sure for your tax information. The tax information I noticed was a little off. So this is where I was pulling the tax information from, not from whatever they have down here, right?
Okay.
Because I don't know
Okay.
what this estimate and where this is coming from. The taxes, I just base it on historically what it has been, even though the 2024 taxes haven't been listed yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is historically, this is what I use, which is higher than what they had factor in here.
Okay.
But you can also go to the DeKalb County Tax Assessor's site
Mm-hmm.
and see what the 2024 taxes is, and make sure you use that accordingly, because I noticed on your numbers it was lower, and so that threw your numbers
Mm-hmm.
off as well. What else? And so with that, so the your debt payment, you had 11,000. I calculated 13 or 15,000, sorry, which is higher. than what you had. But I noticed, and maybe that's like you said, it was doubling up, but it still would have been more, not less. So I'm still not sure how the debt payment was calculated.
Mm-hmm.
But I did make the adjustment for the down payment. That could be where the challenge is, because if you left in the 20%, obviously that's going to make your principal lower. That's going to make your payments lower. So
Okay.
here, let me go back. Here is where you just drop down and make any adjustments you're going to make, whether it's the purchase price, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's because what they have listed is suggested. That may not necessarily be what you offer, but
Okay.
you can go in here and say, okay, this is what my maximum price I'm going to offer. And see here, automatically default to 20%. Now, unless you want to come with 20%, then you can leave that there. But ideally, you want to come to the table with as less money out of pocket as possible. And really, this is just an exercise to show you what traditionally you get when you use traditional finance versus if you're using creative financing. But even if you use creative financing, this can also show you in terms of, okay, if I offer 3% down, 4% down, 5% down, how you make the calculation and determine how much you can give to the owner if you're doing seller financing, where you're financing directly with the owner versus the bank, what you can give down and what you can't, and still make the numbers work in terms of cash flow and setting that metric, right? So this is
Mm-hmm.
probably why your number was lower, was because if you just use this without making any adjustments here, then
Mm-hmm.
that's why that
Okay.
would have been impacted by that. So I just changed that to 3%, because typically traditional conventional is like 3 to 5% down. 20% is for investors. And we are
Okay.
investors, but we wouldn't, again, the purpose of this course is to figure out how to finance and be able to acquire real estate with little money down, little experience. And that's where creative financing comes into place. That's where learning how to use hard money come into place. That's how to use private money come into place, like what we talked about tomorrow last week, using those different creative
Mm-hmm.
options. Um and then your return on investment, and remember we talked about what that metric means, right? Because these metrics are something that you set for yourself in terms of what's worth your time and your money and your effort. And so the cash flow we talked about, at least $300 to $400 a month, right? And then, but that's not the only number. That's just a part of the equation. And your cash flow here with this property was like 1603 when I did the numbers, which is 133 a month, which again, that would tell you right there, based on just these numbers, that that wouldn't necessarily be a deal per se, based on
Mm-hmm.
what they're asking, right? And based on what you can get a month.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then the return on investment is another metric that you can decide, okay, is this worth my time? Am I getting at least 10%? Like you think about the stock market and what you can get traditionally for the standard S&P historically, which is 9 to 10%. And so in my experience, I'm like, well, I want at least 10%, because if not, I could just let my money sit in the stock market, right? So with the return on investment or the cash on cash, that's where you do your um all in cost divide, I mean your cash flow divided by your all in cost, which is annual. And so you take that 1603, and your all in cost is, if you had a down payment, this is where your rehab goes. It goes here.
Okay.
So
Because I
your
was like,
re
I think know it goes somewhere. Okay.
Yeah. So the all in cost is basically acquisition. Basically, when you get to the closing table and you're like, okay, how much did I pay out of my pocket? How much did I bring to the table? And like I said, usually that's your closing fees. If there's closing fees involved, like anywhere from 1 to 3% for that. Closing fees, your rehab costs that you're projecting for the project goes there. Um, Anything that you paid to bring this deal to the closing table, that goes and factors into your all-in cost. So mostly that's your rehab and your closing costs and whatever comes with the closing. The closing costs can be your inspection, the fees you pay for that. And so that's typically what goes there. So think down payment, think all-in costs. I mean, think down payment, think rehab. And I think for this one, you projected the rehab to be, you put 5,000. I wasn't sure because looking at this needs more than $5,000. And so I was curious, how did you come up with the
Well, because
5,000?
I was looking at the roof, and the roof didn't look bad. Um, and I couldn't tell whether there was windows there or they were just boarded up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was something that was hard for me to tell too. Because it when I was like, oh wait, does it need windows or did it just have it boarded up? Why do they have
Hmm.
it boarded up? I'm concerned. Especially if there's windows there, like what's going on with this neighborhood? Like there had a
Hmm.
lot of questions.
And
Because the inside looked pretty decent. It looked like they did something already. So I'm like,
right.
why is this boarded up? And then here, like, it looks like a windows there. So
Mhm.
this is something that you would definitely have to like, and I was just this refrigerator is
Odd. Yeah.
oddly
Yeah,
placed.
look, they
Like,
just stuck it there.
yeah, like so I wasn't sure because it doesn't look like it need a lot of work per se, but
Hmm.
also too, what was confusing about this property, the listing said it says 5-2 here, but then here it says it's a 3-2 or it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
Mhm.
And so that's conflicting as well. So this is definitely a property that you would have to go and look at and see. But minimally, I would just, even not even looking at it, I would be like, okay, 10,000, because we don't even know, right? That's just that Murphy
Hmm.
Law thing. Even if, we ran our numbers and we calculated what it's going to be, we just add another 10,000 on that, just to be safe, to be conservative with the numbers.
Okay.
Um, with that. But again, and I was like, are these rooms? These look really small. Like it was
They look tiny.
right. And so that's why I was like, oh, because 5'2", but so this is definitely something you would have to see in person, but just I would just use because you're just doing an estimate, right? When you're running numbers, you're just trying to see, okay, is this worth my time? We already saw with the cash flow, it wasn't, right? Just based
Right.
on the numbers as is. It doesn't mean when you're running numbers and things don't work, it doesn't mean it's not a deal. It just means you have to then ask yourself the question, well, what would make this a good deal? What what asking price would make this work? What, principal balance price would make this work? These are things that you have to start saying to yourself and like problem solving, like, okay, traditional financing wouldn't work, but could this be something I can do creatively? And I went directly to the owner and I say, okay, and I didn't offer any down payment. And so that would bring kind of your numbers down. And so that's typically how you look at it, but just kind of like roughly to see if it's close to anywhere near your time. This is just kind of to say, okay, I'm gonna pick up the phone and call the owner of the property and see what they're talking about. And just from again the cash flow and the return on your investment, they're very low. It's almost like, is this worth my time?
Yeah.
You have to really ask
Hmm.
Yeah.
yourself that question. And that's where we set metrics to be like, all right, at least 300 a month, at least a 10% return on my investment. If we're coming close to that, then it's like, okay, well, let's go look at it and see what could be done creatively. Because maybe it wouldn't work as a long-term rental. Maybe it works as a mid-term furnished rental, or maybe it works as something where you rent by the room with co-living spaces that people are doing now. Maybe it's
Hmm.
something where you just fix and flip it, right? I always say the numbers dictate the deal. In your business, you have an idea of how you want to run your business and how you want to acquire properties in terms of building your portfolio. But if there's money to be made, opportunities to be made, then you look at, okay, how can this help me? Because even if it's not a buy and hold situation, it could be a situation where you can acquire capital to buy and hold more properties, right? So if it's a deal, you definitely don't want to let it slip through your hands, because you can wholesale it to another investor. You could take it to one of those real estate investing meetings and be like, hey, I got a deal, I got it on the contract, right? But it's important that you know how to run your numbers to see if this could be a deal and how you can make it work for you and if it's worth your time, energy, and effort. And so the other ones, and so the main thing that I noticed was just that vacancy. So that's cleared up 10%, 10%.
Hmm.
And then the taxes, and then
Hmm.
using a mortgage calculator. That was really the main thing. And we could see with these other ones that they were all
They
in the
weren't, I
red.
have such a bad eye.
It's
I gotta keep
okay. You got
looking.
to
I
keep
gotta keep
practicing, and that's
looking.
why I tell you, run your numbers, run your numbers, run your numbers, because this is how you get into the practice of doing this. it's important that you run your numbers, or run, at least set a schedule for yourself. Like, I'm gonna at least run numbers on 5 to 10 properties a week to get into the practice, because then that's where you pick up the eye of like whether this is a good deal, not a good deal, whether it's worth your time, not worth your time, based on the market as well, right? Because you're looking in the same area, when something does come up, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, let me hop on this because I'm familiar with how the numbers are looking, and what works and what doesn't work. But that definitely comes and takes practice in doing it. And then with the fix and flip, the one you have on here, um, let's see. So with this one, you have the male, the A. I noticed that you had 275. And when I looked at the property, that was the actual list price for the property. And when you're doing the mail, you want to use the ARV, which is the after repair value. So after it's been fixed up, what it can sell for once you add value to it. And so that was the flaw with this calculation here, is that you use the 275 versus the 420. Once I did the comps for the after repair value, I got 420. So then you do 420 times the 70%. And then
Okay.
also the repair estimate was really low in my opinion. I felt like this property, because you have like 41,250.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. And it's also a cool thing when you're running numbers on these properties, even if they don't work, I always encourage you to save them, follow them, and actually see what they sold for, right? To see if you were like in the ballpark or not, or how far off you are, um with running the numbers. So I always save properties when I'm running numbers on them, just to kind of see, because you can go back and track it as well, because this was one that was under contract. um let's see. It's, so it's pending, right? To me, the 295 was really high, I think, personally, for that asking price. But you know, when someone's buying property too, you don't know what their exit strategy is. You don't know what they're going to do with it. So you can't solely base it off of that. But I felt like this thing needed a total overhaul.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like all the things need to be done. We have the exterior need to be done, the interior. We have, when it
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to running the
Wow.
numbers,
Yeah.
I feel like this is almost like a full gut. And almost like, did someone start something here?
Looks like it.
I
There's a
hope
lot
so.
of work that
Yeah.
needs to be done. So 41,000 for a 2,000, almost 3,000 square foot property. No. That's gonna be more than that. And remember, I use like $5 to $6 per square foot, per system. And so looking at that, I'm like, okay, everything need to be updated. Just quick glance. Obviously, when you do your numbers and you go in, you walk with a contractor, they can give you a tighter number. But 41,000, this is gonna need more than that. And so I just did the 10 times 6, all systems, at
Mm-hmm.
60 times the square footage, which is 2,860, and I got 170 for that. Um, for the rehab. It could be more or it could be less. But again, we just roughly, that's how we're looking at it, to see, okay, well, how many systems needs to be potentially done, whether it's paint, carpet, plumbing, electrical, kitchen, bath, all the list that I gave you, in terms of systems. And then depending on how many systems or things you need to be done, you take that number from 1 to 10, depending on how many it is, you multiply that times the square footage of the property. So
Question.
uh-huh.
The 420,000, that is the ARV based on comps, correct?
Yes.
And then for your comps, you're looking at a half mile to a full mile, but with similar setup. So if we're looking at a two bedroom and a one bed, like a two bedroom, one bath, that's kind of like what we're looking for and ensuring it's, if it's a ranch, it's a ranch. If it's a two story, it's a
Yes.
two story, right?
If it has
Okay.
a garage, if it don't have a garage, like, you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, but the fixed up version of that. If we go back to this property here, and we just did comps really quickly. Remember, I just kind of try to see where it is on the map. So I just zoom it out here to look for a landmark here. So this is off of Camp Creek. What is that? Hampton Grove. All right. Lions Club Park.
And then like while you're doing that, and then to clarify, because I think I keep pushing together the systems. I probably need to create two separate like flashcards because we're also doing an ARV for rentals. Like that's something we technically do in both spaces, right? We're doing comps because that's the value that we're not starting with the listing value. You're starting with what we think that we could list it for, right? Or am I confusing something again?
So with comps, you have different types, right? So yes, you are going to run comps, whether it's a rental or if it's a fix and flip. The
Mhm.
difference in the comps is the conditions of the house. So with a fix and flip, you're looking at the repair value. You're not looking for at the repair values on a rental because you're keeping it. You're not flipping it. You're looking at basically what that property is worth based on what it looks like to determine how much you're going to pay for it because you're keeping the property. So that would be an as is market ready comp. Not necessarily fixed up,
Mhm.
but comparing apples to apples because you're trying to get an idea of how much you're going to offer for it. The fix and flip comp is an ARV, which is the after repair. So
Okay.
you have your as is, something that needs a little bit of work, undervalued, right? Then you have your market, which is retail, which we're investors. Ideally we're looking for something that we can get a good value for and we can add a little value to it to kind of bring
Mhm.
up the rent prices, right?
Mhm.
And then with a fix and flip, you're looking at the repair value. So you have fair market, I mean, as is or fair market, market retail, a pretty house is what they call it. And then ARV
Okay.
is after it's been fixed up. Because the ARV is not in your rental calculation. You don't
Okay.
have that. In your rental calculation, you have your income, you have your expenses, you have your NOI, you have your cash flow, and you have your return on investment.
Okay.
And then the ARV is inside of the mail, which you can use the mail to kind of help you in determining, okay, what's the most I can use for it. But a mail is typically used when you're doing a fix and flip. Now you may be
Okay.
doing, say for instance, you're doing a fix and hold, right? You're not going to flip it, you're going to keep it, but you're still adding value to it, right? And so in that situation, you could look at the ARV because remember the BRRRR strategy where we talked about if you buy an
Mhm.
undervalued property, you add value into it, you put a renter in there, and then you refinance, cash out refi. So the cash out
Mhm.
refi, if that's your strategy, then yes, the ARV is important because you want to know, well, how much when I add the value to it, even though I'm keeping it, how much can I pull back out of this? Can I pull out all the money that I put in it to repeat the process? And so it all kind of go together, but you're really thinking about, okay, what's my exit strategy? What am I going to do with this property? So if I'm just, it's a rental, it just needs some paint and carpet, then you're looking at that rental calculation. If this is something that you may potentially have to do more work than paint and carpet, like a medium to a huge rehab, you definitely want to consider that ARV value if you're doing a refinance with a fix and hold, or if you're doing a fix and flip. So it's good to know these numbers. If it helps you, you can basically use those two calculations on every property that you look at. You can run a rental analysis and you can also run a fix and flip analysis.
Okay.
Let me
Okay.
go back here. Now I gotta see where this property was. Um, hmm, there's Camp Creek. Was it up here? Yeah, it was up here. That was a
We weren't sure because it was marked as like a
That was a
This is a
different
different one.
one.
Oh,
All right, so we got
Yeah.
a 4-3. I can't tell if this thing has a garage or not. Don't look like it.
I don't think so. It looks like it's got a car like port, like a
Or
flat.
yeah.
Unless that's the garage that's off to the right.
Usually they have like a street view. Can kind of like, whew, Jesus.
Just back off the road a ways.
Hmm.
These trees are concerning to me. Mm, there's like a little driveway here. Maybe, yeah. Can't really.
So it's like I feel like it's definitely like a flat, like a carport, like a something that's like paved, but
I'm just looking at the details to see if it said anything about a garage. Garage.
Mhm.
I don't see anything about a garage, but um, so this is where we're looking for the sold comp, and so you just change that to sold bedrooms, bathrooms. You could do at least three, at least two. We're looking at the last 6 months. Usually, the only thing I change here is the square footage, so that plus or minus 20%, and it does not have the square footage. I noticed that for
Right.
this one. Hmm. You can look that up on the tax records, but this is, I had to guess. It's at least the other one was like 28. So,
Mhm.
mm, and so you could see all these comps around it. And there was a 425. See what that looks like. And this looks like a this is newly rehabbed here. You can tell just from the outside. I don't
Mhm.
have any inside pictures because obviously with the ARV, you want to see what the inside looks like to make sure it is. But if I had to guess for 425, I would, lean towards this was a ARV for fix and flip. Let's see. So that's 425 for that one. Here's a 390. Just from the outside, it doesn't look like it. But again, is this may not be a recent picture either, especially if it was a fix and flip. It takes a while for the things to update. I know my friend, we've sold a couple of properties where once sold, it reverts back to the old picture and the new picture is not there anymore. But again, when it comes to ARV, ideally you want to make sure that this is actually like a fixed up comp, and that's being able to see the inside. These numbers jump significant. Oh, these are newer, right? And so
Mhm.
remember you want to stay within that 20-year. I can tell just from that one. That wouldn't be one. These look newer. Let's see.
Mhm.
This is like 1972. So we
70.
don't want to look
Yeah.
anything past 2000. And we can put that in here somewhere. If it's not, we
Year
just
built.
have,
You can just, yep, scroll up a little bit. Hmm.
yeah, let's say 2005 and apply. Okay. But yeah, that just I was hoping to find one with some pictures. Obviously, that's a distressed property. I don't like to go across highways unless you just know the neighborhood because it's like 'cause sometimes you go across the track because the highway is a totally different neighborhood. I'm not
Yep.
too familiar with this area to be like, oh, let's go across the highway here. But if you know the area, um, again, is I use PropStream to be able. That's how I was able to get my numbers. Using PropStream.
PropStream seems like it really is a game changer.
It Listen, if you don't purchase anything else, because I mean, when you have a business, there are tools and things that you need to run your business. If you don't buy anything else for your business, I highly recommend PropStream to be able to get all this information and data so you can make an accurate analysis and assessment of the property as well as the owner, and just to be able to see the the overall what's the story being told on the property.
Mhm.
And then having some type of CRM, whether it's REI Reply or some type of system where you are tracking and managing when you send out mailers. When did you talk to somebody? What did they say? How did you make your appointment? How did you book your appointment? It's very, very important to have a system in place to be able to track this, because as you're making offers and running numbers, um, you're going to see is your database is going to expand. So there has to be a way to be able to track this. So PropStream definitely, because you can only get so much public information off these sites, right? And you see here, we can't even look in the inside of these properties to get a fair assessment. But the 420 I was able to get from PropStream, so that's how I was able to do that with that. And so that is when you're doing the mail. The important thing is your ARV times 70% minus your rehab. Would you have the calculation here? Just um this is was the actual like list price of it, which is this will be considered a as is value, that
Okay.
275. And if we're looking at as is, then the comp would be okay, something that's not fixed up, right? Something that
Mhm.
looks exactly how the target property we're looking at, what it is being listed for. See, this one sold. Once it's sold, we can't see. Um, and so this will be considered an as is um fair market analysis. I mean, comp for a property. Trying to find one that may be
I
close.
think we're on sold,
Oh, that's
like
true.
as our search bar.
But we do want to be on sold. That's the thing. We do. We want to see when we're doing comps, you want to see what property sold for, not what they listed for.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, because some of
So we can see.
these, but
Okay.
again, we're not able to. Sometimes they have the picture, sometimes they don't. Sometimes with what is it? Red, is it Redfin or
Redfin.
retail?
Redfin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes if you just go to Google and put in the address, you can
Mm-hmm.
find listings that have like better pictures, or just have pictures on there that you can get at least an idea. This one is the one that's listed, so it has pictures, and these are the same pictures. Sometimes it has different ones,
Mm-hmm.
but you can do the same thing. You can look at comps, and maybe they'll have like um pictures you can see what the inside of the properties look like when you run in your comps. So that's how I did. But yeah, I use PropStream to be able to get that 420. Let's see. So I think that was just looking at your numbers here. And again, like I said, I said like 170. It could be over, but it's okay if it's over.
Mm-hmm.
At least you have an idea. But even with this, even if you said 100, like they're asking for 275. To me, they're asking for a lot for everything that needs to be
Mm-hmm.
done with that property. Just the landscaping is going to be
Mm-hmm.
expensive on that property. So, and that's just the outside exterior. So, I got 124, you got 149. Either way, they're asking for way too much. But again, that could just show you like, okay, this is not worth my time, energy, and effort. But also,
Mm-hmm.
too, you can, if I go back to it, I want to go back to the property. Again, I would save it to come back to see what it did actually, because it's under contract, right? Oh, 295. Yeah. So It's under contract, so this would be something to like track and see, just to see what they do, what they pay for it, and just track the whole story of it because somebody's going to fix this up, right? And then they're
Mm-hmm.
going to put it back on the market, and then it's going to be listed for a price, and then it's going to sell again. So it'll be very interesting to see what they paid. You won't know what they put into it, but what they pay versus what they can get for it, and if they're even able to get what they think they're going to get for it. Because just because somebody buy this deal at this price don't mean it's a good deal, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have people that buy bad deals all the time, right? So, but yeah, that's that. Do you have any questions about that? Because those were the only things that I saw that was just that needed to
Glaring.
be
Work.
clarified on the numbers.
Yeah, that pretty much answered my question because those are the things I was unsure about on this particular one. Um, on the one that she had to do for this week, there was a couple
Oh, you didn't send
questions
me
I had about.
those.
Okay,
No,
well,
he's not talking about the math. We were
Oh,
my
looking at the
yeah, I
pre-foreclosure
guess my
list.
biggest thing is when
oh,
you're
okay.
looking at the foreclosure list is I was getting confused with, well, not confused. I just didn't understand where to start because you have the original purchase cost, then there's a mortgage cost, and since it's on the foreclosure list, when I went to Zillow, I couldn't find most of the properties was not there. There was no information on Zillow nor on Redfin
Which
because those are the
information,
two that
like
I
the
was.
mortgage?
Yes.
You won't be able to find the mortgage. You would have to use a separate mortgage calculator to be able
Okay.
to calculate it yourself. The main thing with foreclosures, right? Because with the foreclosures, uh, Georgia is a non-judicial state. And so there's 30 days between being listed and being sold. And so the main strategy or approach to foreclosure is to be able to get those uh, creative financing subject to. So
Mhm.
you really need PropStream to help you with that, to be able to accurately assess that because you can in PropStream you can see what their mortgage is. You can see what they're paying per month, like the things that's missing off of Zillow. You can see that on PropStream. You can see how long they own the property. You can see what their interest rates is. And so with the pre-foreclosure, the first thing I do is I go in and I you take out the properties that you want. For example, DeKalb County, right? That's the first thing you do. Pull out the properties. Then you want to reach out. The thing is, you want to market to every property that's in that bundle, right? And say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. We understand the property may be in pre-foreclosure. Whether you're going to call them or send them a letter or postcard, you say, "Hey, how can I help?" Because you need to know what's going on with the property as well as with the owner because they're in distress. And so once you and remember when we went through that list before, when we pulled out DeKalb County, right? We looked at the
Right.
ones that, it
Blah,
was
blah,
regular
blah.
FHA, conventional, not the arm. We took the arms out because we don't want to
Mhm.
deal with adjustable rate. We don't want to deal with any reverse. So once you get that list down, you mark it to them, call them, send a postcard. You want to be able to talk to the owner and be able to say, hey, what's going on with the property? How can I help? Then that's when you have enough information and data to be like, okay, you go on PropStream and you see what's going. Do you have a property, an example of one so I can show you?
Um.
Or give me an
I'm sure we
address?
do.
Yeah, I have one. Let me see. What is it?
Hold on one second. Let me log into
Four
Prop.
nineteen Dolchester.
Okay.
That's when I was trying to do the homework sheets off
Mm-hmm.
This is off of the new foreclosure list, Daddy, or the old one?
the new one.
Okay.
And I really don't deep dive into numbers into the foreclosure until I'm to the point where I get the owner on the phone or I get the seller on the
Hmm.
phone, and find out what's going on with them to see if they because if they want to save the property, I help them in terms of, well, how can we help you save it? And that's where the pre-foreclosure ebook come into place because really you want to build a connection and relationship with them. The properties that I've acquired that were foreclosed properties, there was a communication connection. And then it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, I can't save it. Then, okay, now we can buy it. Now you position yourself to buy it from them, and you can do it several ways. And subject to is one of the quickest and easiest ways to do it because it's you can be able to close on a subject to 7 to 14 days. All you do is bring the foreclosure current, you take ownership of the property, and then the debt stay in their name, but you pay the mortgage and you own the property. And that's where subject to come into play. Because any other type of financing, number one, you could do hard money, but that's more or less for a fix and flip, right? So any other type of finances, you need at least 30 days for underwriting. You don't have that with a pre-foreclosure. And so with pre-foreclosure, the best approach is one where you can go in and do it creatively, whether you're going to do a fix and flip with hard money or if you're going to go in and take it over, subject to.
Okay.
But you still looking, you typically, because you have the access, still looking prop stream to even see if you feel like it's going to be within your wheelhouse in terms of a property that you would potentially want to take over, right?
Yes, because you need to see, right? Because like I said, when you get the list, you mark it, right? You don't too much delve too much in the numbers yet. You want to mark it, you want to get a hold of somebody. Once you get a hold of somebody, then you want to look and see like, is this something that is worth my time, my energy, my effort? The main thing with the list, but you can still use that list to be able to run numbers, to get in the practice of running numbers, right? And so you're just when it comes to that mortgage piece that you were asked about, Mr. Earl, you would just
Mhm.
have to use a traditional mortgage calculator to try to estimate
Okay.
what their mortgage payment is. And on the foreclosure list, if you go to the category, it tells you what they paid for it. It tells you, I believe
Yes.
it tells you their interest rate. So you have what they
Mhm.
paid for it.
Yeah.
You don't know
Very
their
few of
down,
them.
yeah, you don't know their down payment, but you can just guess it at
Yeah.
3%. So you can kind of get a rough idea of what their PI is. And you just figure out what
Okay.
the TI is, which is the taxes and insurance. So if
Right.
you could just see what
Very
they,
few of them. I'm sorry. Very few of them actually have the interest rate.
yeah, and that's another thing
What I
too. Like
found
you,
was
yeah.
that they have the original cost, and they'll have the mortgage amount, and then they'll have the term of it, and when it was originally um,
Purchase.
purchased.
Yeah. And what you could do in that instance, because you're just gonna have to do a little bit more, unless you have prop stream, you gonna have to do a little bit more digging where you can see, because they'll tell you when they bought it, and you can see, okay, what
Yes.
was interest rates
Average
in this
interest rate.
year, right?
Hmm.
What's the address?
What is it? 419. Let me go back to my spreadsheet here. 419 Dorchester. Make
Dorchester,
sure that's
like
right.
this. Am I spelling it right? Dorchester?
419 DO. No, I'm sorry. Colchester. Colchester.
Colchester.
Yes. Colchester Drive.
Stone Mountain.
I believe it was um in Stone Mountain. On it. I didn't put all that in my list in here.
Oh
It's
yeah, I see it now. It's Stone Mountain. Yes.
okay. All right, so here we have the details for that property. Again, it's in pre-foreclosure. They've owned it for 21 years and 9 months. Let's see here. Uh, Valerie McCray is the owner. Um, we have monthly rents here, 1737. I think it doesn't have to be listed for you to see Zestimates on Zillow. You still probably can still see what the Zestimates are, but not, you can
Mhm.
just also, again, look on Rentometer because this is where the income part of your income, of your rental calculation come from. So here you have the income part, but this may be low. I feel like PropStream is always on the low end when it comes to rentals. So I always look for the Zestimate and also look on the rentometer to see what the average is. So that's the income part, right? The
When
expenses is go ahead.
rent, could you spell rentometer for me? Is it like RENTO?
Rentometer.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And so okay, so there's the income part of the equation. Then we have expenses, which is taxes and insurance. Again, I'm not sure if, yeah, I think they will have, I'm not sure if they have on there or not, but you can go to the tax assessor website and you can get the tax information for the property. So that's where you will find the taxes. Insurance, we just was using 1,200 or $100 a month. Just an estimate until you start getting actual quotes, you would know what insurance costs would be in that particular market. But just for practice purposes, we were using 1,200 a month or $100 a month for the insurance part. So we got taxes, we got insurance. Um, sorry, we got taxes, we got insurance. If there's a HOA, it would be on here somewhere.
It's
Um,
at the top, but it said no, I think. Like at the top, is where I initially saw it on here. Uh,
let's see. Usually it'll be
right there. It's next to the picture of the house. Or that's where I
yeah.
was reading it
Hmm.
last time.
Yeah. Hmm. So there'll be that's if there's a HOA. Um, Again, you can take what they paid for the property, which is on that list. I'm telling you all this if you don't use PropStream, but I'm highly recommending you get PropStream. You can see PropStream is going to save you a lot of
Yeah.
time, energy, effort.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this can be done without it, but you can see you're gonna have to go to all these different sites, click on all these different things where you can have it. That's the beauty of PropStream is like all in one place. I think it's like $99 a month. Everything is in one place. It even has a CRM for you to be able to track as well. If you didn't want to get an additional CRM, it has a way for you to track properties and you can be able to generate your own leads. You can look up vacant properties. You can look up properties that are recently divorced, estate sales. You can create your own list inside of PropStream outside of the pre-foreclosure if you want to look at something like that. So that's the expenses. The tax information is here. Taxes are really high in DeKalb County. It's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah,
Five
taxes will
thousand
take us
dollars.
down.
Yeah, like so I feel like the ones we were looking at is probably much higher than that 3,000 whatever we were seeing because that was 2023. Taxes have gone up significantly. And so
Yes.
making sure that you see how important that is because that can probably kill your deal. You do the tax, you be like, oh, that can really kill
Yeah.
your cash flow. So it's important to know these numbers, and that's why again, PropStream. Here is where you have the mortgage information. They don't always have the mortgage information, but sometimes they do. So this.
Looks like it's two loans.
Yeah, maybe it was like a down payment assistant type of thing. Because sometimes if they'll do it like two separate financing things. Um, yeah,
But they're
it's two different things happening here. Also, too, the foreclosure letter will tell you what is being foreclosed because it's possible that whatever this loan is and they could have owned these properties outright 20 something years. It's possible they own it and then they did some type of like they took out a HELOC or they took out
Mhm.
or they refinanced to get money out. But and there's no telling with this like what actually is being foreclosed. Is it the second? Is it the first? We don't really know. But this is just showing you when you have a foreclosure, because if you're taking over a foreclosure, you definitely don't want anything complicated, right? If you're making the payment. So it's good to have an idea to know, okay, what's going on? Have these been paid off? Is it just one? Is it both of them? The total of them is like what, 64, 65, 67,000 roughly. Um, but again, you could do the comps in here, and this property is worth um almost $240,000. So if this is all
Mhm.
they owe, then if you can, you know, close this deal out with bringing it current and then just taking over these payments, that would be a sweet deal, right? And so that's what creative finance come into place, because then you would negotiate like, okay, well, and this is why you need to market and talk to the owner, be like, okay, what's going on with the property? Because you need to know that to be able to run your numbers, right? And sometimes this stuff is not updated, right? And so that's why I say the first thing is to get the list, market to the list using that lead funnel that I taught in the first finding deals, using that lead funnel to drive for dollars, or however you reach out to the owner, call them, talk with them, what's going on, go look at the property, then do your research and then do your calculations to see like, okay, what the deal is with the property. Because when they first reach out to you, or when you're able to get them on the phone, you could do a quick glance and be like, okay, because if this says something like let's say arbitrarily they had a debt on here that was like 240,000. The property's only worth 239,000, right? That's not really worth your time. Or you see the monthly rent is 1737, but their payment collectively, the payment here is about 800. So just roughly, it's like, oh, if I made both these payments, that's 800 and something dollars, but this is only PI. We also have to take consideration the taxes and insurance, which the tax is like 5,000 something dollars. So if you did the
Mm-hmm.
quick math on that, where you're like, okay, this is 800, right? And that 5,000, what is it?
Divided by 12, that's got to be what, smooth, I don't know, what, 800 a month or something ridiculous?
Yeah. So now we
Yeah.
at 1,600, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, wait, if I can only get 1737
Mm-hmm.
and the PITI 600, you could quickly see, like, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because with this situation, there's only one way to do this. Is not one way. There's only the approach is you're taking over the payments. Can you make your money back in cash flow and whatever rehab? And that's why you need to go see the property too, to see, okay, well, how much money you have to put in it. But the beauty of this is being able to see, well, what are they paying in the taxes and insurance, and what can I get for it?
Mhm.
And that's the approach to foreclosure. But foreclosure, you approach them with, how can I help you? Can I help you save it or sell it? Because someone may be like, well, I want to save it. But when you hear their story, you'll be like, there's no way they lost their job, they don't have any income. The reality is they can't. But you just kind of walk them through it and be like, well, here's my pre-foreclosure ebook. Here's the Georgia Housing Assistance Fund where you can make it some help. And then you follow up like, hey, were you able to contact anyone? And they maybe be like, well, I can't because I don't have this, or I don't have the money for it. So then that's when you come in and be like, well, worst case worse, don't let them take the property and you get nothing and you have a foreclosure in your record. We can purchase the property for you and prevent the foreclosure from going on your record. And we can close in 7 days, but we need to do a subject to where the debt stays in your name, but we bring the payment current and we take care of the payment. And so that kind of transitioned us to the the conversation for today is closing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Closing on the property, because you may be like, well, how do you negotiate something like that, right? Let's do stop share really quickly. Share. I love when they move stuff around.
Daddy, you stay on.
I'm
You're
gonna
more
ask
than
one more question,
welcome
then I'm
to.
gonna get off.
Oh,
Okay. On the math portion that was sent out, I'm not sure exactly what they're called. There is a spreadsheet that's the five five
you're talking
six,
about the Excel calculator,
right, the one that was on 5 Roller Lane, the easy offer.
the easy offer calculator. Mm-hmm.
Okay. On that one, that's where I put in, I used the property on that Colchester, but I had no clue as to what numbers I was supposed to be putting in, because off the foreclosure list, it doesn't give you a lot of numbers. So now I understand that
Yeah,
basically
prop stream. Yeah, yeah. You have to find the numbers yourself.
you have to find, because it was asking. I mean, because it was several ones. There was the uh, realtor commission, breakdown of commissions. There was the pretty house evaluator for lease. the wholesale lease, agent breakdown. Um,
So for the Easy Offer Maker, when we did a video on that, you want to go back and watch that to understand how to use the Easy Offer Maker. We
okay,
use the two tabs where we have one for owner or seller financing, which is the long financing term, and then we have the retail short form, and then we have the retail long form. Those are the two tabs that we use in the Easy Offer calculation. But
okay,
the video explains like what goes where depending on what the exit strategy would be for the property.
okay,
And for the pre-foreclosure, the plug and chug is hard because we don't have the numbers as easily to put into the calculator.
You can get the numbers from PropStream.
Right.
okay.
But I'm saying like based on what we physically had like over the past couple of weeks and trying to do it, I'm like that I'm sure is part of the disconnect. Because
Because
Yeah,
we didn't have
underneath
yeah,
the
the
PropStream.
yeah.
Mhm.
underneath the due diligence, it's asked. It start off asking for the projected sale price. Well, we have nowhere knowing what that is. It's in the
You
foreclosure.
well, no, the projected sale price is your comp. So
Okay,
with the retail form, that's for a fix and flip, right? And so that projected sale price would be the ARV.
okay. And then okay, the long term owner finance. That's the present is still the
That's for rentals.
that is the one that's for rentals
Yes.
because it says the current ARV. So you have to go and do the comps in order to get the current ARV.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you have
Okay.
to do that for any property you buy because you need to know, make sure you're not overpaying for a property. So the first step in running numbers is to run your comps. And then we have the different types of comps, right? We have the what we talked about, the fair market, or
Mm-hmm.
is it an after repair, like a fixed up price?
Okay.
Yeah. I was doing the same thing and thinking ARV was specific to a fix and flip, but you need it for rentals too, to your point, so you're not overpaying.
Correct. That's just to make sure that you're like whatever
Yeah.
the market is, that
But
you're
that
like,
clearly
okay.
need to be mindful of. Yes.
Yeah, because a lot, as you can see, when you're running your numbers, a lot of times people are asking way over what the property is worth. And
Mhm.
it's like, well, where are you getting these numbers? Because the properties that
Especially now,
sold,
post COVID, because I feel like people paid more than, so now they're
right,
also
and
trying to sell more than.
right,
So, yeah.
exactly. So they dug themselves in a hole, and you don't want to fall. You don't want to jump in
Yeah.
somebody else's hole. And so it's important. Those comps are important to see. Like, and that's what that is basically short for comparative analysis. Is to see like, okay, well, what based on this house, what properties have been selling for? And like I said, as you can see, a lot of things are overpriced. A lot. And if you're not a savvy investor, if you're not familiar with running your numbers, you can run the risk of paying more than you should for a property. That's why it's important to run the numbers and understand the numbers. But using the Easy Offer Maker, you can even without PropStream, you can still get those numbers. You just have to go to different places. You have to go to the tax assessors. You have to run your comps. You can run comps. I just show you how you can run comps on Zillow. Um, the taxes and insurance and everything. So you could still do it without PropStream, but you have to dig much deeper to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do that.
Okay. Okay. All right. So tell me, you have to send me because you didn't send me the easy offer, anything on the easy offer.
Okay, Daddy. I'll send it to you.
So I mean, I didn't know I couldn't do anything with that. But all right, then I'm gonna get off, and then I will. You can relay everything to me that we need to look at in order to make this figure out what we need to do.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just a numbers guy, but I need the information in order to run the numbers.
Yeah, I understand you do.
Okay.
All
Well, it was
righty.
nice meeting you again.
Nice seeing you again. Have a great
Thanks,
week
Pops.
and Merry
All
Christmas.
righty.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, awesome. Getting to the closing, right? So up until this point, we've talked about, let me hide this, hide floating media control. Up until this point, we talked about finding properties, right? In different ways to find properties, finding different leads, which the pre-foreclosure is a way, a lead source. Um, then you have driving for dollars. You have looking on the market, looking off market. So finding deals for you to be able to get to the point where you, okay, now we got to run numbers to even see if this is something worth my time, energy, and effort, right? So finding and then funding what we talked about last week, the different ways to fund properties. You have traditional ways, which are FHA, VA, conventional, and then you have the creative ways that we talked about. Because when you're running your numbers, you'll see, okay, this doesn't work traditionally, but could a creative structuring work where if I did sell or finance, if they free and clear? And that's a good thing about PropStream too. You can literally look up properties that are only free and clear. They have a filter for that. So you can, if you want, if that is your strategy, then you can do that. And as you can see, depending on your lead source, there's a strategy associated with each lead source and how you approach it. And you see the approach is different, right? Just like with pre-foreclosure, it's a little different nuance because you're trying to figure out what's going on with the seller, but you have a very short window to be able to do that. So narrowing down, okay, what approach do I want to take? What lead source do I want to pursue? And how I'm going to approach it in terms of financing. That's very important because there, as you can see, there's many ways to do things. So it's very important to narrow down what do you want your strategy for finding properties to be? You are already clear about your exit. We already know what your exit is. But what is going to be your strategy for finding these properties and narrowing it down to one or two ways? You don't want to have all these different strategies, right? Not starting out. You want to perfect or master a strategy and be like, okay, I'm cool on that. Then I can learn something else. So narrowing that down and figuring out what your approach is for finding properties is very, it's going to be important for you. And then again, funding the deal. And now we're to the point where the closing the deal and mastering the art of creating an offer that gets accepted, especially, and that's why it's important to understand creative financing, just financing, period, because you want to know and be able to explain to the seller why you're offering what you're offering, right? Because if you come with an offer, they want 200,000. You're like, well, I can give you 100,000, but let me explain to you why. Let me show you how I came up with this number. Let me show you the comps that I did. Let me show you how much it's going to cost to get this to that place. So under the closing part of that is being able to articulate that, communicate that confidently and understanding, so when you make an offer that you're approaching the situation in a competent way. And so you found the deal, you ran the numbers, everything looks good. Now you make an appointment, you go see the property. You don't want to make offers sight unseen, and ideally you don't want to make offers over the phone. Sometimes with the pre-foreclosures, you may not have an opportunity. You just know that you're going because you're getting foreclosures at a really good deal because you're just pretty much bringing the property current. But sometimes you may have to negotiate that over the phone because it's of the short window. But typically you don't. You want to at some point, even if you get it under contract, before you go to that closing table, you want to put eyes on that property, and that's where the due diligence come in, because you got 7 to 14 days, right? 7 to 10 days to be able to go lay eyes on the property. And so again, there's two ways to make an offer. You can either do it through an agent. So if the property is listed, you can do that through an agent. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. It's just with an agent, they have their own paperwork and you just let them do whatever they're gonna do, like in terms of their paperwork. Now, your numbers gonna be your numbers, and they need to make the offer based on what you're offering. Or a lot of times, because you don't need an agent as an investor to make an offer on a property. But if the property is listed by an agent, then you go through the agent. You don't want to go directly to the seller if they have an agent because they have representation. So we just want to do things ethically and be like, all right, you got an agent. I'll make my offer with the agent. The other way is direct to seller. That's a property that may have been listed and is expired, or a pre-foreclosure. They don't have an agent. Sometimes they do though. Some of them try to wait to the last minute and be like, "Oh, let me try to sell it in 30 days." So you may see a pre-foreclosure that is listed, and sometimes the agent don't even know it's in foreclosure because they're not checking the foreclosure
Mhm.
list to see if the property is in foreclosure or not. But I promise you, I've called some agents. I'd be like, "Oh, I noticed this property on my foreclosure list." They'd be like, "What?" Because if they don't know that, you can imagine their surprise. Because it's like, wait a minute. Because with the foreclosure, they only got so much time. So there may
I'm
be a
curious too. because with the list that came out, there were some properties that are also on auction.com. And I thought that that was if you are actually in a foreclosed status.
That's
Do you,
pre-foreclosure.
it can be P foreclosure as well?
Yes,
Okay.
because auction.com is going to have the actual auction date that they're going to auction it off. So it's not being
Okay.
sold, it's being listed that this is going to sell on this date, which is whatever the first Tuesday of the month is. So that's why you will see it on auction.com. But
Okay.
it's basically saying, okay, it's getting ready to be foreclosed.
Okay.
Um, and so, and then you have again direct to seller. And so with direct to seller, you will use your own paperwork and how you make those offers. Um, and it starts with a simple letter of intent, right? So you talk to a seller and you seen the property, you ran your numbers, you confirm your numbers, and you like, okay, I'm gonna make an offer this way, and then you email it, or you can however you want to deliver it to the seller of the property and saying this is what my intent is. The letter of intent, and this is in Google Drive,
Mhm.
and I can show you an example of it after the call. I mean, after we go through the slides. It is you want to make sure, and it's just a simple Word document. You just say, and this is not a contract or nothing, right? It's just a way for you to make an offer in writing. Make sure everything is in writing. It can be an email, but it can actually be a letter that you send. Clear identification of the property with the city and the county, the price or whatever financing details, especially if you're doing like a seller financing type of structuring deal, making sure you have that information clear on there. Um, Whatever proposed contingencies you may have. If it's like, well, this offer is based on free and clear title. This offer is based on whatever you told me, whatever you disclose, which is called a seller disclosure in terms of what's wrong with the property. If I come back with something else,
Mhm.
this price, you know, may
Yeah.
not stand, right?
Okay.
And so that's what the proposed contingencies are. What your closing date is. I always do 30 days out, even if you're going to do, especially if it's a foreclosure, even with your foreclosure, put 30 days out. But obviously with a foreclosure, you're going to close sooner than, and you can explain that to them like, hey, this is just a part of the our paperwork. Because sometimes you can temporarily stop the foreclosure while you're going through the process. So you don't want that. And even though I'm talking about the letter of intent, because the purchase and sale agreement is going to have that on there too, but just kind of put in there, 30 days close, but explain to them that if it's a different situation like a foreclosure, like, oh, we're going to close 7 to 14 days, right? So
Okay.
having that information and being clear, but just being able to explain it and whatever additional information that you want to add on there. And like I said, I'll show you an example of one that I've sent out. And you usually have about three different offers on there, just depending, especially when you come again to seller finance or owner financing. And when you have a well-crafted LOI, it just demonstrates your seriousness as a
Mm.
buyer, and it kind of sets you apart away from other potential buyers because it's in writing, it's kind of, it's not formal, but it's kind of formal. They have something to look at. For example, what if they told you no, right? And they thought they was going to get a better deal. Now, and that's why I love the letter of intent, even if it's rejected, to me, is not only just to make an offer, it's also to build relationship, build rapport, because they have something in their hand and they have something to go back to. It's like, oh, I remember when Tamara made me this offer. Let me go back and see if that still stands. So it's something that you can have that may come back and make you be able to close on a deal later on. Again, determining what's your maximal allowable offer. What are you going to offer on this deal, whether it's a fix and flip or it's a rental? What is the most that you are going to offer? And this is for you to understand because when it comes to negotiation, your offer may be rejected. And so now you're ready, you position yourself to negotiate, right? But also knowing what are you going to walk away from. You have to be very clear because it's easy to get emotionally caught up in these properties.
Mm.
So you got to position yourself strongly, be like, I'm not paying. And they don't know this, but you in your head know not to. You get to a point where it's like, this is the most I'm going to offer on this property. And that's just that, right? But that's to keep you focused, keep you clear. But going in the negotiation and the closing process, that's important to make sure that you stick to your guns because you ran your numbers, You looked at the market, you're very clear. So knowing that is important. Um, Effective communication techniques, because again, relationship based business, and you're cultivating and creating a relationship even with the owner and the seller, because most times people may not even, people sell or do business with people they like, and it may not even be the highest bidder, but because they like you or because they've created a rapport with you, they may potentially go with you. You want to, learn how to foster communication skills that produces results.
Mhm.
And so with that, you start with active listening. That's why I said with the pre-foreclosure, you send your marketing out, whether you're going to do a postcard, whether you're going to call them. Um, you want to, once you get them on the phone, once you talk with them, you want to ask them, well, what's going on with the property, right? Or if it's not a foreclosed situation, why are you selling the property? Just and listen because you're listening so you can create solutions.
Mhm.
um and repeat back to them, so you could say things like, so I understand, so make sure I understand, so I understand that you want to this, or you something called labeling, where it'd be like, well, it seems like, or it feels like, and you're just basically repeating to them what they said. Just this is confirmation, but also to let them know that you are
I
listening
hear you.
to
Mhm.
what they're saying. I called some people today from the foreclosure list, and I don't want to say I got cussed out, but a couple of people hung up in my face. One lady was like, I blocked you. I don't know why you keep calling me. And so it's okay, but just prepare yourself.
Okay.
These things come up, right? But the thing is not to take it personally, because you can understand that they are, when it comes to pre-foreclosure, some people are going to these people's houses, they're putting notes on their doors, they're doing some really questionable things, some of these investors. And so the seller is dealing with that. And so they tend to lump you in the pile of people that just do some
Mhm.
creepy, weird stuff. I had one lady tell me some guy came in their backyard and was talking to their child, like weirdos. And so,
Stop.
yeah, yeah. Or they'll put a big note on their door saying, you're in foreclosure, call us, or something, which is, that's embarrassing. Why would you do that? It's not very discreet. So
Right.
that's why they're on edge, because once the list is posted, you can, like, there's other investors that's trying to get to this person too. So, so they kind of lump you all in. And that's why I always lead with, how can we help? Do you want to save it? Do you want to sell it? Either way, we're here to help you. Always lead with compassion. Um, and also asking questions like, what would make this work for you? What are your next plans after this sale? Getting clarity, and just avoiding any misunderstanding is important. Again, building rapport and establishing trust. Finding a common ground or sharing interests, because you want to listen to what they're saying. So if you find something that you connect with them on, share that story, right? To be able to, again, build that rapport, and of course maintain professionalism, even if you may want to. There been times I'm like, you know what, you got the right one today.
I want to help you.
Exactly. Ain't my fault you ain't paid. Like,
I got a
what I'm
house.
saying? Maintain professionalism and
Yes.
respect, and just put yourself in their shoes, because I actually lost my house to a foreclosure, no fault of my own, but my ex-husband. And I share that with people. I share that common ground. I tell my story of how I lost my house, and I wish someone would have called me and told
Mm.
me that I had options. I didn't know. I just was like, oh, they foreclosure. I don't know what to do. I wish I knew what my options were. I would have happily done the subject to or whatever. I would have done that because I had already
Mhm.
moved to Atlanta. I had already left. My tenants had already moved out. Like, I was an accidental landlord anyway. Like, I got divorced during the recession. I couldn't get a house away. So I had to put tenants in there.
Mhm.
But I kind of
Mhm.
shared that story. And so my point is to find common grounds and be able to communicate that with them. And so mastering the techniques to close confidently, recognizing signals for when you can just kind of fly in and land a deal. Identify when the seller is ready to finalize the deal. Ideally, you're negotiating face to face. So, looking for positive body language, looking for verbal cues. Again, really to just go in and close the deal in terms of like, this is the offer that you're making them. Um, and I always, when I go to people's houses, when I make appointments, I typically carry purchase and sale agreements with me, print it out. Because you may be able to get them to agree to something right then and there. You got the paperwork, but I also use DocuSign, which is a service that you can use where people can sign things electronically. I use that as well, but I do make a habit of when I go look at properties, I have the purchase and sale agreement right there with me. That's not the letter of intent. The letter of intent is like, okay, you making the offer. That's just, if you talk to somebody and they're like, well, I don't really know. Well, here's my offer. Like they're kind of hesitant. But if you're like in person talking to them and they agree, you can do the purchase and sale agreement. And the purchase and sale agreement, that's the document that you send to your attorney. And then your attorney starts the whole due diligence, legal due diligence. And so when you're getting to the close, you want to clarify your terms and conditions, whatever your terms are going to be, the length of time, how much you're going to pay. Make sure you're clear. If you're doing some type of creative finance, make sure you're clear. Make sure they understand, they initial, whatever. And then you want to summarize any key points of the agreement, any concerns they may have, any contingencies, and they're more than welcome to look it over and decide because you don't want anybody to feel like they're being manipulated into doing something, right? And so just making sure they feel pretty confident about that. And so if you have your purchase and sale agreement, they can sign it right there, or you can send it to them and they can sign the purchase and sale agreement. The purchase, I do have a purchase and sale agreement that I've used in the past that's inside of Google Docs as well. So if you see anything on these forms, you're like, what is this? I don't understand it. Please feel free to be like, okay, what does this mean? And I can show you the letter of intent and I can also show you the purchase and sale agreement.
Oh, wonderful. Do you feel like this part is easier? Meaning like the face-to-face part, does that feel like easier?
Way
Yeah, in
1000%.
my okay,
Trust
yeah, in
me,
my
when I
mind and my
started,
spirit, it
listen,
seems like this is the because this feels genuine, right?
yeah,
Like if your heart's in the right place, it's like, no, I
absolutely.
genuinely just don't want you to be out here looking crazy because
I'm
the
trying to
world is
help.
hard.
Right. You create win-win scenarios. When you go in with negotiation, um, you want to create a win-win scenario. So as much research as you can do as possible to learn about the property, but also learn about the seller. Go see if they got a Facebook page. Look up go in with as much information as you have so you can go in and be able to close that deal confidently. When I first started though, this was probably the most terrifying thing for me was to talk to people on the phone and in person. I was terrified. I was like, I don't know. Even with the scripts, I was just winging it. Now I just blurted off. But it took me doing this constantly practicing, getting hung up on, getting told no. It took a lot of no's to get to a yes, but I had to do the work. Like none of this stuff works if you don't. So, you can have the system, you can have the things, but if you don't have any leads coming in, if you're not pursuing, if you're not running numbers, if you're not making offers, you're not going to close on a property, right? And so this is the most important because you want to make as many because it's a numbers game. It may take you 100 offers tomorrow to get to one closing. I'm not even kidding. It's a numbers game, but the sooner you get it out there, and it's who you're becoming and develop as a result of this. You're becoming more confident. You're becoming more competent. And so when you start doing these things, it's like, oh, especially when you close on that first deal, girl, you're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna just be knocking it out. But again, is doing the work, doing the repetition. This is how you get good at this, and this is how you get to the closing table is making offers. But you got to run numbers to make offers. You got to call sellers to make offers. So and then making multiple offers. And that's kind of like on the letter of intent. You will see, it's kind of like three-tier strategy. You don't want to overwhelm them. Obviously, if you're sitting in front of them, you're kind of making your offer. But if you're sending like a letter of intent, You can kind of give them some options because they may be like, well, I don't want to do that. Then, well, here's another option. Did you think about this? Consider this. And so having three different options in mind is a good strategy. You can have a low cash offer. Cash offer, you want this to be your lowest offer. And this is pretty much if you said the MAO, right? The maximum allowable offer, right? If you just use that formula, right? To be like, help, here's a cash offer that I can make you, right? But make that low. You want to make the middle offer, you want to make that kind of like the one they go for. And that's the medium price. That's the one where you do terms. That's the one where you can make them a monthly payment. That's the one when you're structuring the deal, you make this the kind of like ideal one. But you can also have an offer where it's like it's a higher price based on if they say, for instance, you made them a median price and they're like, they if they wanted more money, but those terms are going to be less favorable. So yeah, I can give you this higher price, but you're going to get less on a down payment or no down payment, or you're going to get, the terms have to be extended, right? In terms of how long you're going to be financing it. So having at least three different option strategies is good because if they tell you no for one thing, you're like, all right, cool, I got this. You can pull multiple rabbits out the hat. Even if you didn't have it written down, have that in your head. Like, okay, if they tell me no here, I'm gonna offer this. If they tell me no, they don't want to sell. All right, what about a master lease option? What if I rent this with you and then, we negotiate there was repairs need to be done. Remember, I was telling you about the master lease option where you could be
Mhm.
like, okay, I don't pay you the rent for 3 months because I'm doing the rehab, the repairs for the property. So going in with three different strategies is how you're gonna increase your chances of closing the deal. So what happens? You make the offer, right? So three things gonna happen. They're either gonna accept it, and then you move to the purchase and sell agreement in the contract and closing. They're going to counter it, and this is where the negotiation comes into place. Or they're going to be like, no, they're going to reject it, right? And the thing is with rejection, no today may not be no tomorrow. Again, my several properties I've gotten, I got told no initially, right? So, but you can learn from the response. You can ask them, oh, why? Or what would make this work? Just asking the question, learning from the responses, right? This is how this is going to help you, but don't take it personally. Like dig deeper into what the seller's motivation is, right? And that's the key. And so what are some of those objections you may hear because you get to the countering or handling objections. What do you do or what do you say? What are some of the objections you may hear? So these are just some common
Okay.
objections that you're going to hear when you're talking to sellers because you're going to be talking to them a lot. You're going to be get in the practice of calling, talking to these people, right? So, the key is to acknowledge the concern. I understand your concern and empathize with the seller's perspective. Don't shoot them down or make them feel like they're incompetent. Always come with the facts. That's why the research is important. That's why it's important to know that you know that you know, right? Because you come with the facts, you come with the data to support your position. I even like when I'm running numbers and I use the easy offer maker to run my numbers and show them. I'll even because you can print, you can like save it. That's why I always save by the address. And then I show them, okay, this is how I came up with the numbers, right? Full transparency. And then you can offer alternative solutions or compromises. And so one, the price, right? Of course, they always think is worth more. That's of course. And your response would be like, well, based on recent comps, sales in the area, and your property's condition, our offer reflects current market trends. Or you can even ask them, well, how did you come up with that number? And they may show you a property, and then you could be like, oh, and when you look at it, you can see that the property is fixed up. They don't even know. They just see that the property across the street from them sold for
Right.
350,000. And they
Yeah.
gonna automatically assume, well, I can get 352. Well, you see this kitchen right here, and you see this bathroom right here. This will cost you about 20,000. This gonna cost you about 30,000. And is what need to go. And we have to subtract that if we're gonna buy the property as is, or unless you're gonna put the money in, then you can sell it for that.
Right.
So be ready. When I go talk to sellers, those comps that I pulled up or that I used to run my numbers, I have them saved and I pull them up and let them see. I'm like, oh, this one sold at this day. You see this right here? I have that ready to go. Um, the conditions, they may be like, well, the property needs repairs, and you can let them know, assure them, listen, we buy as is. We're comfortable with the property's conditions and we are prepared to uh handle necessary repairs. Um, a timeline, they may need to sell quickly. Great. We can accommodate a quick closing, and that's where we can get creative. That's the motivation for creative. Like, oh, you need to sell quick? Great. I have a solution for that. Um, Financial, it may be I need specific amounts for the sale. They may be like, this is my number, I need this number. And we could just say, well, let's discuss how we can structure the deal to meet your financial goals while also meeting ours.
Okay.
The market, that's an objection. And that kind of goes to what I said about, oh, the property across the street sold for this. And while we acknowledge market fluctuations, our offer is based on current conditions of the property and recent comparable sales. Because they may also be looking at something that sold last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, the house last year, interest rates have gone up. So many things, and it's important to know what's going on in the real estate market as well, because this may cause you to do shifts when you're running your numbers. Just like during COVID, when I was getting started in my business, so many things were happening where I had to adjust in terms of even running my numbers. Because if I go back 6 months, but then 3 months ago, the interest rates jumped up. I can't go back 6 months anymore. I got to go back 3 months now, right? Because of the condition of the market shift and change so much in that 2 year time frame. So it's important for you too to know that, okay, typically, standardly, you go back 6 months, right? But it's like, okay, well, what's going on in the market? Because the conditions may change where you have to make shifts in how you run your numbers and how you look at the market analysis. You may have emotional if someone have to sell the house. They don't want to sell the house, or maybe it has sentimental value. They grew up in the house. Um, Being able to speak to that and say that we're committed to preserving the property's legacy and maintaining its integrity. We have trust. How do I know you're going to pay the mortgage, especially with a subject to? How do I know you're going to pay the mortgage, right? And you can offer this up to them, like, well, what specific information or assurances that we can provide to earn your trust in this transaction. Also, too, you let them know, listen, I am in the business of making money. If this property doesn't make money, I'm out of business. So it's behooves me to make sure the mortgage is paid. Also, too, you can put contingencies in your contract and you can talk with your attorney about, you know what? If I don't, and this is not with a foreclosure situation, this is like if it's not a foreclosure, but something where you're doing subject to or creative, because subject to, they're not paying it anyway. But even still, you can be like, you know what? If I stop making the payments, you know, on the property, you can put some kind of contingency in there. It's like, well, you can take the property back. And the benefit is it's fixed up, is rehab. Like, so that just kind of assures them that you are in business and you're running an ethical business, and also yourself to make sure that you are making these payments on time and making sure. And that's why it's important to run your numbers and understand, because if you're doing a creative finance, you don't want to mess somebody else up because they trusted you to be in this
Right.
position to do what you said you were going to do. So making sure you honor that is important. Because some people don't. Um, Having, an alternative offer, if they're like, oh, I have another interested buyer willing to pay more. Okay, you should go with that. That's a
Mm-hmm.
that's a good deal. But you could just say, you know what, well, we're prepared to move quickly and smoothly and to secure it. Because what you'll hear oftentimes, you have investors who make offers sight unseen, right? This is how unethical they are. They'll make the buyer offer some crazy number, don't even make sense. Then what they'll do is they'll get it under contract, especially if you're dealing with a foreclosure, because they know they got a short window. Get it under contract. They'll go do the inspection, be like, oh, you know what? We can't give you that because these things
Seeing
that
all
need to
these
be done.
concerns.
Then they come back with a lower price. But now these people are at the end, their time is pretty much running out. And now they're forced to take whatever they can get or foreclose. So people do that to lock in a contract and let the clock run down, and then kind of come in and bamboozle them on the back end. So when they say that, you be like, oh, okay. But understand this is what people do, especially if it's sight unseen. They ain't even seen your property. This is what they do. But we are prepared to make this offer and go ahead and go through the closing. Um, when it comes to seller finance, they may say, well, I prefer a buyer who can pay cash. And you can just say, well, let's explore how we can structure the deal to address what your financial needs are. Would, you can even be like, okay, cash for what? If it's a down payment, just to understand, right? So you can come up with the solutions that work for the both of you. There's legal objections that could be, for example, maybe somebody's going through a divorce. That can be challenging. And you can just let them know that we can work with legal professionals to ensure compliance and address any outstanding issues that is going on with the property. Um, just I'm gonna share some tips to get more offers accepted because remember, numbers games. You want to make as many offers as you can, right? Be the first to make the offer. Be the first to, and there's two schools of thoughts with that. For me, I'm more or less on the motivation part where the longest, especially for a listed property, like the longer it's been up there, the more likely I'm gonna get a chance to come in, versus when it's first listed, right? When it's first listed, they may be in a position to be like, well, I'm gonna see what I can get. But some people may think if you're the first one to make offers, some people may be, whatever they're going on with their situation, they may be like, the first one I get, I'm out. So some say be the first one to make an offer when you're seeing properties. Again, I'm on the other end of that. I want to let it be on the market for a minute. Um, Maybe you remove any um, financial contingencies that may be on there. I'm trying to think of like, I'm trying to think of financial contingencies that may be in place. I'm gonna have to come back to that one because there are examples where, you may forfeit any financial contingencies that goes on there. So you can be able to make it more lucrative for them to go ahead and sell it to you. Um, Buy as is sellers so they don't have to deal with this with the hassle. Hey, I'll buy as is. I'll take it the way it is. Remove any inspection contingencies that may be that some sellers put on there, some investors, but again, this is more for savvy investors who like, we don't even care because we already know what we're going to go in and do with the property. So they may remove any inspection contingencies on that. Write a personal letter to the seller. That doesn't hurt. You sharing your story. I have this letter that I tell about my company, and you can send that with your LOI. You could tell about your company, what you're doing, why you started your business. That just kind of add a little bit more sentiment to it to again make that connection. You can increase the earnest money deposit. We kind of talked about that before with the EMD. Typically it's $100 to $1,000. But if you want to add extra, just to kind of make it more competitive, just depending on what's going on. Usually I try to go against the herd. I don't try to go where everybody else is going. But there, though, that is a strategy that some people have used. But just remember, when the EMD go hard, you don't get that back. EMD goes hard um, after your due diligence inspection contingency. And that inspection contingency I talked about before is like, you know what, we're going to completely waive that. I don't recommend that, but some people they be like, you know what, don't even worry about it. We want to go ahead and get this closed. But I don't recommend that, especially when you first getting started. Again, that's more or less for advanced investors.
Don't you
Um,
worry.
Providing proof of funds. You will hear this a lot when you're talking to agents. Sometimes they want you to provide, okay, how are you going to finance this? In the past, I've used brokers. I've used mortgage brokers to help me, in terms of saying, hey, this is, I'm looking for a property. This is what I have or whatever. Working with a mortgage broker is really cool because, and I have a guy that I can recommend to you, but it's really good because they can give you that proof of funds. Even if you don't have anything in place yet, they can go ahead and give you that so you can give to somebody, whoever that asks. When you're working with a hard money lender, if you're doing like a fix and flip, or if you're doing a fix and you're going to bridge it over to a traditional finance after you've done the fix up process, they can provide you with the proof of funds too. But you will hear them say that proof of funds. They just want to see that you have the money to be able to close. And a lot of times that's when you're dealing with an agent. You can offer flexible closing times. Again, Most time closing in 30 days, but you be like, hey, I can close sooner, or you can even say close later. Last property I bought, the guy wanted to extend the closing because he didn't want to have to move into a hotel until he got deployed. So I was like, fine with me. We can extend that. So being flexible on that can definitely help you, because if it was like somebody that was ready to move, they're less likely to do that because like, well, no, we're ready to move now. That's why we're looking to buy the property. So being flexible on that can help you close on your deal too. Again, make offers often. Consistency is the key. Again, it's a numbers game. So again, we have acceptance. They accept the deal. Now what? You have the due diligence. Due diligence is broken down into three categories. That's your property due diligence, where you can walk through with your contractor to be able to, or have an inspection done. It's totally up to you, depending on the condition of the property and how much work needs to be done. Um, but just making sure you don't miss anything. Inspection does not hurt at all, right? I've
What do you
had,
recommend?
hmm,
I said, so which do you recommend? Or does it depend on like what you see, or how do you
it
decide
depends on
that
the
for you?
property. So like, we, so when I had a full gut that we did in Atlanta,
Hmm.
we basically in this due diligence period, right? We basically walked through with the contractor because we knew everything was going to get done.
Yeah.
So it didn't
Yeah.
even matter in terms of inspection because it's like, no, we're updating everything. So it
Okay.
didn't, because we were doing everything on that. But if you have something where it just like seemingly look like, oh, it looks from the outside look like it doesn't need a lot of work, then you may be like, well, okay, if you're going in thinking you're going to just do paint and floor, you may want to have an inspection done, right? Because
Hmm.
you're not professional to see the other things that may look good on the outside, but may need some more work. So it really depends on the property, but and even with the one where we did the contract, we had an inspection done after we finished everything on the property, but we did that ourselves. Even though the buyer is going to have an inspection done, typically, we had
Right.
an inspection done to make sure we didn't miss anything either. But having an inspection or a contractor, just making sure you have those things done because you want to be very clear about what you're getting yourself into based on you running your numbers and having a professional do that. And so that's really up to you in terms of, and like I said, I feel like that's more or less dependent on what's going on with the property. But you need to know to make sure that you did your estimates. And you're like, oh, okay, I didn't miss anything because you want to get on the other side of that. Be like, oh, we got foundation issues and I didn't know.
And your cost for your inspector, that's something that we should be including in
That's your closing costs, basically.
our
Yeah.
closing costs, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That 1 to 3%. I have to look it up, but because every market is different. But yeah, that inspection, that is included in that. That's considered your closing costs.
Okay.
How much you pay for the attorney to do the title and all that stuff. That's
Mhm.
and so you have the property due diligence, and then which is that 7 to 10 day contingency. And then you have the inspection walkthrough. Then you have financial due diligence. This is now you're like talking to if you use a mortgage broker, because a mortgage broker is they looking at all lending options versus if you just use like a bank, right? And they just looking at whatever they can offer. But a mortgage can lender can look at all the things like from back when I use the DSCR, like I use a mortgage broker to help me find that. I was like, listen, this is the property, these are the numbers, what you got? He was like, all right. He go through all his lending options, everything except creative. A mortgage broker is not going to introduce you to creative, that's on you. But everything else available to you as an investor or whatever your condition or your situation is, the mortgage brokerage is going to be the one that kind of helps you with that. And they're going to be the ones in that due diligence. Okay, they want to see your paperwork. So it's important to have your LLC documents, your articles of incorporation, uh having your EIN letter because you're putting the property in your business name. Even if you're putting it in a trust, you still want to have the business documents ready to go and be able to have that information ready to go to your lender. If you're doing creative finances, obviously that's not the case because you're working directly with
Mhm.
the owner. But that's a part of the financial due diligence, making sure you got your paperwork and whatever you need to get the financing that you're going to use in place. And then you have your legal due diligence, and that's what your attorney is doing that. And you send your purchase and sale agreement to the attorney, and now they're running the title.
Okay.
But all that is happening simultaneously. So
Mhm.
acceptance, due diligence. Now we're at the closing table. Yay, you getting ready to get the keys. You're coming to the table, you and the buyer. You got the HUD statement. This is the actual legal document that's going to be recorded at the Superior Court. And it's called a HUD statement. One side is your obligation, the other side is the seller obligation. You sign it, congratulations. You purchase your investment property. Now what? Right? And so then we have project or property management. Project management is more or less if you're doing like a fix and flip, you're going to sell it. And so having a scope of work, like, okay, what are you going to do with the property? What's the timeline? Who's going to be doing what? Making sure there is effective communication in terms of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and who's going to do it. If it's property management, even if it's like, if it's a paint and carpet situation, obviously you can manage that. You can hire someone to do that. But then it becomes a property management. Okay, getting the property ready to be listed, having a screening process, using your own, like I use Turbo Tenant to be able to screen tenants, to be able to list it. Turbo Tenant is good because you can list it on all these listing like apartments.com. It's like a one-stop shop. You just put it into the system and it lists it for you. You could do your background checks, you could do your screening, all those things is like your own little property manager. You can also hire a property manager and but make sure you factor that into your numbers. But that's the process after you've closed on the property and say, okay, now what? This is what I'm going to do. I self-manage all my properties myself. Even when I had the big fix and flip project, I had a contractor, but we pretty much we weren't GCs, but we were GCs, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
we had to make sure that the contractor and whoever he was bringing in was doing what they were supposed to be
Supposed to
doing.
be doing. Mm.
Yes. Thumbtack is a really good app to find
Mm.
like subcontractors if you need someone that specializes in something specific, like if you need someone to do like electrical, if you need someone to do plumbing, if you don't have anyone, um, Thumbtack is a good resource to use to find you a painter, find somebody to do some carpet. Thumbtack is good to find subcontractors. And last but not least is again thinking about closing, thinking about negotiation, coming to that table where because you want to get your offers accepted so you can get to the closing table and purchase the property. Again, think of the acronym SPY. You want to, when you're negotiating, remember seller, property, you, right? How can you solve the seller's property? I mean, the seller's whatever, like creating a win for them, right? Whatever they're looking for, how can you create that solution for them? The property, what's going on with the property, and making sure you understand that and making sure it's a win for the seller and then for you. So think about what you want to get out this as well when you're thinking about coming up with solutions for the seller of the property and then yourself. And again, creating win-win scenarios for everyone and everything involved. And I've mentioned this book several times, but I don't know if you got it yet or started reading.
I
But
haven't finished. I haven't started this one.
yeah, Never Split the Difference is probably best as an audiobook because it's not an easy read in terms of it's difficult, but
Ah,
it's so much
then
information. It's like
okay.
it's like a rich piece of fudge. It's like you have to bite it, and be like, all right, wait a minute, let me
Okay.
process this. Let
Okay,
me
that's good to know.
maybe let me implement, let me practice some of the things and then pick it up again. So that's like
Okay.
that. Yeah, it's so good though because he's a FBI, he's a former FBI negotiator, but he's sharing the tactics and how you can use these in like everyday life to be able to come to get to the yes. And then there's Getting to the Yes. There's an actual book called Getting to the Yes. And it focuses on the principle of negotiation. So these are just some really good books to read on that. Let me stop my share because I want to show you share. I
Oh
want to
yeah,
show
that's good
you.
to know because I really assumed that his book, because he is with what was he, CIA, FBI, whatever.
I
In
think
my head, it
FBI.
would have been a bit more of like a read. So it's helpful to know that it's not going to be like a cover to cover read for the average person.
Because it's very rich. Like it's
Okay.
like, oh, it's he gives you so many techniques that you have to like use them to be like to make that connection in your brain. And I
Okay.
also see you like I have a really good there's a really good interview of him on Bigger Pockets where he's talking specifically about real estate. So let me write that down to send you Chris Voss Bigger Pockets
Yeah. Might be a
interview.
good introduction to where his mind is at before I
Yeah,
crack open
yeah.
that book.
It's
Get a
it's
little
so
taste.
it's good though. And
Ooh,
it's like
okay.
not just real estate, it's just in life. When you're negotiating for a
Okay.
raise, like just in life, being able how to effectively communicate and be able to get what you want and not in a and not manipulating either, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Mm, okay.
share. All right, so we have here is okay, so
Mm,
this is an example of a letter of intent. It's five on here, but keep it, don't, a confused mind say no.
okay.
So keep it real simple.
Yes.
The first one is like that cash offer, which is usually going to be a really low offer. Like you can use the mail really quickly for that. Just to kind of give a rough idea on that. Even if it's a rental, it's like, okay, just coming up with a low cash offer and you can use the mail for that calculation, just for this sake and purpose. And then the medium, and so you can see here, you can have the purchase price, um, how much you bring in the closing, balance to be paid when we sell or new financing, or a balloon in 5 years, whatever comes first. Um, and that kind of goes to like the seller financing. And you can even talk about, okay, well, how much I'm going to pay monthly. Because that's what I would have here. I would be like, okay, 175,000. I pay you $550 a month. And the balance to be paid when we sell or new financing or a balloon in 5 years. And this is where the negotiation may come back or it may be countered. Like, oh, I need it sooner or I need it later. You can even start with 10 years. Like the longer you can stretch that out, the better. But if they counter it, you'd be like, okay, cool. If you adjust this, then it's like, okay, what else are you going to make the adjustment, right? To make sure that if they're wanting more on their end, how can you leverage it on your end, if that makes sense? Like if they wanted a shorter time, or if they say, for instance, because most time they're gonna want more money. So if they want more money, it's like, oh, I can bring you more money, but this number gonna go down. Whatever I'm paying you a monthly gonna go down, and maybe this 5 years get extended, if that makes sense, right? So
Okay.
this is where you can kind of get creative with structuring that, but just having different offers. Um, and then you have the third offer where here is just the purchase price stayed the same, but how much you brought to the table. Um, I'm trying to figure out why no monthly price on here.
There's one after that.
Yeah, like this one should have had a monthly, but this yeah, so you see the monthly is gone is 625 on this one, but what you brought to the table is decreased.
Hmm.
In terms of the closing, like down payment. And this one here, the purchase price stayed the same. What you bought slightly came up, but because that came up, this gonna come down, right?
Yeah.
Same thing here. Okay, purchase price is lower. I can bring you a little bit more, but this gonna come down too. So, and then you just say, hey, all we need is to close quickly is clear title. And again, other possibility, let's talk. Um, so using the easy offer maker that seller financing, that's how you can come up with different scenarios and different offer types. Again, if you send me properties that you're running the numbers on, I can help you with that. Is I can run it through it and show you how to input that into it so you can see how the numbers work.
For the
If
easy
you let
offer.
me know, like, okay, I saw this property. Um, these are the numbers that I came up with. Um, what do you think? And also like running it through the easy offer maker, we can do that as well. So that's the letter of intent. And then
Yeah, it's really challenging because I think I talked to you about this before where I'm like, no, I really feel pulled, and I don't know why, but sometimes you just have to listen to the intuitive component. But I feel pulled to really focus or hone in primarily in the pre-foreclosure space. And
Yeah,
so I'm like, okay,
that's
yeah, I
and
really
that's
should have been
yeah,
having prop
yeah.
stream on my Christmas list, honey. But
Definitely, definitely. And
I,
if you're going to go the pre-foreclosure route, the thing is, the first step, like I was telling you guys on the call, the first step is the marketing. You need to be able to market. You
mhm,
need to be able to get these people on the phone. You need to know, okay, whether you're gonna go knock on their door, whether you're gonna send them a postcard, whether you're gonna
right.
do skip tracing. Because I have the skip trace list. I need to forward it to you. I have the skip trace list with all the phone numbers on it. So if you want to start calling people, let me send you that now. I forgot to send it to you. Send skip trace
No
list.
problem. So it left me that quick. Must I need dinner? I don't remember what I was going to ask you.
It's gonna come back. I'm pulling up the
Oh yeah. Okay. So like for this, the flow of this month, right? The pre-foreclosure list came out on
Friday.
Friday.
Yep.
And so in theory, they would have until
Let's see. The first
like
trade day
the
would be
of the new year, right?
so the sale is
They would
January the
have until
6th.
the 6th.
So
Okay.
ideally, you want to have something under contract by because you got all these holidays. That's another thing.
That's why I was like, this month feels like aggressive.
It is
um,
because you got
in a
two
different way.
holidays. Yeah, you got two
Hmm.
holidays, and a lot of the courthouse is closed. The like I'm telling you, like so. Ideally, if you can get something under contract by next week, that'll be great because that'll give you some time to kind of like work through the holiday time and be able to get through to the 6th. But yeah, it's like just with the holidays in my experience, like no later than the 26th. So that means you got to really be like this week, this weekend, whatever your strategy is going to be, you need to get these people on the phone and have these conversations. And like I said, I'm going to send you the phone numbers, get the people on the phone. And even if you think about it, it's like, you know what? I'm just practicing. Just think about it like that.
Okay.
I'm practicing.
That's what I was about to
Nope,
ask.
no pressure. So that way, and
Okay.
who knows, if you come out with a property, that's even better.
Okay.
Even better,
Okay.
but yes, the action. We have to be in action for these things. But yeah, we need to get people on the phone. And then once you get them on the phone, you get their situation. Even if you get someone and you're like, Sapphire, I don't know what to say, you can call, I can be on the phone with you. I can talk to them for you. Like, use me. That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
for this time period, this is what I'm here for. So the more you do it, the better. Like I said, even if you have a property, I can, so before we get on the call, I can be like, okay, this is what I have. Let me run it through the Easy Offer Maker. I can even send you the Easy Offer Maker, what I came up with, and we can compare. So you're knowing that, okay, what you're doing and maybe what you're missing. Like you showed me the numbers before, like, okay, this is what you were missing. Boom, fill the blank. Okay, now we keep doing that because that's where you're getting to the point where it's like, okay, you learn, you've got the foundation. Now you have to actually implement it and apply it.
Okay. Okay.
Um, where is the purchase and sale agreement? There we go. So I showed you the letter of intent. Just depends on the situation. But if you're right there in their face and y'all come to terms, like, okay, cool, bet. Here's the purchase and sale agreement. You put, your business, the your investor company's name, the buyer's name, the address, the county, total price. So this is where your EMD goes, but that's actually subtracted from your total price. So if you give them 100, like I say, usually from 100 to 1,000, I start with 100. That goes there. When it gets creative, this is where all this stuff comes in. Like if you did subject to, this is already based in there. So if you're doing subject to, you want to get the lender, the loan, what their interest rate, make sure all this stuff is filled out and what that amount is. So if they still owe 150, that's your subject to amount. Say for instance, you offering them 200,000, right? Your EMD is 100, your your subject to is 150 and you're offering them 200. So what is that? That's 49.99. No, 49. Trying to add everything up. So 200,000 minus 150 minus 100. That's 49.9, right? That would be your 200 be your total price, but when you come and like in terms of the bringing it what you bring it to the closing table, you know you're bringing 49.9 to the closing table because 150,000 of that is being already financed. And the $100 doesn't go directly to them, it goes to the attorney and escrow or whatever your EMD is. That goes there. Um, but that's if it's subject to, that's that line there. Um, if there's a mortgage, when we were talking about if it wasn't subject to, if it was a wraparound or something like that, you need to know like what's the balance on their debt if there's a debt in place. So, but this is where you put like your total price, and this is kind of like the breakdown of that, whether it's being financed, whether it's already financed, whether you bringing it to the table, all that kind of goes in this section here. You want to make sure they initial each
Mhm.
page, kind of explain them like, okay, here's your closing, the closing cost. You can be like, you know what, as the seller, um, we'll take care of the closing costs. Just to kind of make it, more because typically the buyer would take care of that, but it's like, you know what, we'll take care of that as a seller just to make it more appealing to them. Your closing date. This is you make sure you put your closing date there.
Well, we would be the buyer, right?
Hmm?
We would be the buyer.
Yeah, we'll be the buyer.
So we would be taking the closing costs, no?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
Hmm.
okay.
We would take the closing costs. But sometimes the seller, just depends
Yeah,
when
on what
people are
the
trying to like
agreement.
sell the house, they'll be like, oh, we'll take care, but then on this, we were like, you know what, we can say typically the seller would offer some type of contingency on that. We were like, you know what, we'll take care of the closing
I
costs.
see. Again, because we're helping you out, right? We're making sure
Exactly.
everyone wins. I see. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. So make sure they initial it because you have this in their face. So you just depending on what you structure is just understanding what each of these sections are. Um, the This is coming from subject to line here, I believe, or seller financing. This is kind of breaking that down. What the seller agrees to take back a purchase of money note. Like if they say, for instance, that 49.9, you don't want to bring that to the table, right? You could be like, okay, we can finance the 49.9 as well. That means the seller carries a note. That means you pay whatever you pay for the mortgage that's in place, but then you agree to pay so much per month towards that 49.9. So you're not having to bring all that to the table. You could do a seller, what is called a seller carry. So there's ways where you can finance all the stuff and don't have to bring a lot of money to the table. And so that's what this section is for if there's equity in the property. You're like, oh, I don't have all that. Well, you can negotiate that too. All this stuff can be negotiated. Um, the survival of the agreement, this is if this is and keep in mind that this agreement is investor friendly. So if you wanted to assign, um, I'm sorry, the agreement is, and this is kind of like the tendency in place of saying, well, this is based on if my partner agrees to, right? So, and this partner could be whoever you like work with. If you have somebody like a joint venture, or your partner could be your dad. Like, hey, my dad gotta make sure you approve
You got to
this,
check my
right?
work.
I
Yeah.
check my work, right? So this is
Yes.
this is a protection for you. The
Okay.
assignment, that's when we were talking about wholesaling. This gives you the option to be able to do that, right? Like you get it under contract, but then you assign this contract to somebody else. That's what an
Got
assignment
it.
is. An assignment is just another sheet of paper that says assign. So with an assignment, you have two sheets of paper. You have the actual contract, and then you have the actual assignment of the
Okay.
contract. That's it when it comes to wholesaling. So this allows you to be able to do that. Um, and when the offer expires, right? So you want to
Mm.
have some type of sense of urgency about it, right? So you kind of put that in there. And it just kind of depends because it can be like, especially with a foreclosure situation, it's like, oh well, that's that 30 days out thing we were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, just having that in there and then that's it. And this is what you would send over to the attorney. And they actually do they create the HUD statement based on that. But the
Okay.
letter of intent is just like you're just trying to negotiate and make an offer. And
Yeah.
then this is like, okay, you're trying to negotiate, make an offer, and then they're like, oh, okay, I agree. I agree, then boom. Now you have the purchase and sale agreement. They need to sign this. You need to sign it. Make sure, again, they initial each page so they understand that they read each page. And I recommend you go through and read this as well. So if there's something like, well, what is this? We can talk about it as well. But it's very simple, very straightforward. The one from the realtors is like a bunch of pages. It's crazy. It's a lot of pages. But when it
Okay,
comes to their, if an agent's involved, we just use their paperwork, let them deal with it. That's what they get paid a commission for. So
for sure.
to deal with all that. So yeah, those are the two documents basically. I wish I want to show you an actual HUD. So you can see HUD. Is this it? Yeah, so this is my first property here, and this is what a HUD statement looks like. And so this is my company. I'm the buyer. This is the young lady that I bought it from. This is a subject too, by the way. The Gervy Law Group. He's in Atlanta, so I would recommend Andrew Gervy. He's good. Andrew is, how can I say this nicely? He is very intelligent. And when it comes to creative, like he knows this stuff, he knows it forward and backwards, like to the point where you don't need to, right? However, I feel like Andrew is a little Aspergery in terms of his social skills and cues when it
Good
comes
with
to.
numbers. I feel you, but maybe a little. I went to Georgia Tech, so
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. You're used to those kinds. Okay.
Uh-huh. That
That is
yeah.
Andrew. That is Andrew. And sometimes you like, listen. I done had several come to Jesus talks with this dude. Like, dude, come on. So I just want to give you a little heads up about that.
Okay. Understood. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But he is really good, but sometimes you have to stay on him or his people to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is, my side. This is what I offered to her. The settlement charges in terms of what she was like walking away with. Um, this is what was subject to, right? So even though I offered the 215, the 194 was what was actually
The
assumed.
debt.
I don't want to say assumed because assume is not the same as subject to, but this is what was
Right. It was the debt,
is
right?
the
That was the
debt, right?
total remaining debt.
Right. She was behind about 12. I think maybe she was behind like 15. So that's how we kind of got all the way up to this 215. And then I offered her 3,000. So we got the debt, we had what she was behind, and then we have what I offer her to walk away with. So that was everything that had to come to the close. But that's when you go to the closing, this is pretty much the main. There's some other documents you may have to fill out, but this is the main one. This is that legal document, the settlement statement. And
Okay.
this is what get filed and everything. So yeah, I just wanted you to see like a actual like
Yeah.
copy of that as well. So you're like, oh, I've seen this before. I'm familiar. Like, yeah, yeah. So when you get to your closing, you're gonna be like ready to go.
Yes, this is what I'm looking for.
Yes,
Yes.
visualize it, girl. I'm telling you, before I closed my first property, I was living in Mexico, I didn't know anything about anything. I just knew I had a mission, I had a purpose, I had a why. But I could like see myself at the closing table. I could see myself getting keys. I can see myself owning the property. Like I would visualize that before I ever sat at anybody closing table. So it's important to visualize these things. I know it may sound like kind of
No,
corny, but
I'm with the woo woo. I am
yeah,
with
it
the
may
woo
sound kind
woo.
of woo, but I'm telling
Mhm.
you, I did that, and it's something powerful about manifesting and seeing the things you want to see before you actually see them. So for me, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to close. It was like, oh, when. That was my attitude. Oh, it's just when. It's not even if. Yes. So, okay.